I was sitting in my mom's dining room table. I went to go see her. I got this swollen neck, it's all black. And we're talking, we're just conversing, and she's looking down at my neck and talking back up and looking down. I say, hey, Mom, I know you don't like this stuff. I know you don't like this stuff, but it's gonna be a bodysuit. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna tell you something. She said, you do two things. You do two things. You're able to support yourself with whatever decision, you make and decide to do. And you stay the good person I raised you to be. And she said, you do those two things, I don't give a shit what you do after that. So I was like, cool, Mom, I can do that. My name is Gunny. I'm born and raised in NYC. Lived in Harlem, East Harlem growing up. Lived in the Bronx a bit. As an adult, Queens, Brooklyn,
You hit all 5 boroughs yet?
No, Staten Island is like the one that nobody really sets foot in. Childhood was rough. Parents are born and raised in Honduras. My dad's African and my mother's native Honduran. They came here in '77 and had me. Just started their life here, hard workers. Not fond of tattoos. It just wasn't a thing they did, you know what I mean? It was the furthest thing from their minds. I always saw them in the neighborhood, only like street guys, jail guys, some military dudes, had the old school guys with the tattoos on the forearms and things like that. It always intrigued me. One day when I was 14, I saw this movie and the villain in the movie had a Mickey Mouse tattoo on his arm. It was a Steamboat Willie, but he had an angry face. His lip was out, eyebrows down, and I pressed pause on it and I was like, wow, that's like the coolest tattoo I've ever seen. So I drew it off the TV. I freehand drew it on a piece of paper, cut school the next day, jumped on the train and went downtown Manhattan, West Village, searching all day long. Everybody kicked me out of the shop, get out of here, kid, you give me ran me out. And one crazy bastard did it for me. He just told me to sit down, snatch the paper out of my hand. He's like, $80. And I was like, okay, cool. And I just sat down and got my Steamboat Willie tattoo and went to high school the next day. And I was like, man, everybody's like, is that real? Is that real? I'm like, yeah, it's real. Yeah, so that was my first one. And then it continued on 15, 16. I got more and more,
How was the reaction?
I didn't get yelled at. I hid it for like 2 days, I remember. And then finally I was like, F it, they're gonna see it. So I remember my mom was like, what is that? And I'm like, it's a tattoo. Like, a what? I'm like, a tattoo. She's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, nothing's wrong with me. It's cool. She's like, no, but what's really wrong with you? In Spanish, we spoke Spanish only in the house. I wasn't allowed to speak English. So they were like, what's wrong with you? And I was just like, I like tattoos, that's it. Why? I'm like, I don't know. It's cool. I'm gonna get more. And that was it, As soon as I got my first one, I knew it in my heart, this is it for me. This is what I'm gonna do. There's nothing's gonna change that. And when I turned 27, I've always worked these hard labor jobs my whole life, construction, no fancy forklifts, none of that stuff, all manpower. And I realized my back and body just wasn't gonna take that kind of beating forever. So I said, man, I could be a tattoo artist. I have all these tattoos, I can draw. And that's what happened. I got my first machine from a guy tattooing out of his apartment. I kind of asked the guy, where'd you get your stuff, man? And he wasn't trying to help me out. And I was like, all right, well, and he's like, what do you have on you? I'm like, I have this iPod Color, it just came out. He's like, all right, I'll give you a machine, power supply that was like size of a lunchbox, And I went home, tattooed my own legs. I met my mentor, Megan Hooglin, at the New York City Tattoo Convention in 2006 or 7. And I didn't know she was gonna be there, but I used to read her articles on the train every day, all of her articles, every magazine, she was in. I thought her work was mind blowing. At the New York City Tattoo Convention, I see this blonde haired woman, she's faced to the back. And I asked her, I said, hey, excuse me, are you Megan Hooglin? She's like, yep. She's like, are you a tattoo artist? I'm like, no, aspiring one day, So I start hitting her with all these questions about the article, and she's like, how the do you know this? And I'm like, well, I do a lot of reading on the train, I read all your stuff. She's like, that's impressive. I don't even remember that stuff. And I'm like, she's like, go grab a chair and get in here. I'm like, oh, I don't even know where I got the chair from, but I did. And I went in her booth and I just sat there, twiddling my thumbs. And she was like, you know how to draw? I'm like, yeah, I know how to draw. She's like, no, do you know how to draw? I'm like, I know how to draw very well. And she says, go grab a paper and a pencil and I want you to draw this bouquet of flowers. And she's like, I want you to draw this 70% smaller. Don't go photocopy it and shrink it down, minimize it 70% smaller. She's like, you freehand draw it. I'm like, can you do that? I'm like, yeah, I can do this. It took me about an hour or two, drew it. She comes by, she looks at it, she's like, perfect. Now go make me a stencil, I have to tattoo this. I was like, whew, man. If I would have messed that up, I'd have been in trouble. But, that was my first test. After that, I sat and watched her for that day. And the following day, she's like, what are you doing tomorrow? And I'm like, well, whatever you're doing. And she's like, all right, I'll see you here tomorrow. I'm like, okay, I'll be here. And she did that this following day. It was a 3-day convention. We did that every year for the consecutive 6-7 years until I worked the tattoo convention myself. All the stuff that I collected in my youth, I had removed with laser for about, I would say 2 solid years. Everything on my legs, chest, I had a big throat piece, all black and gray stuff. Sleeves, fingers, everything I lasered off. Once I lasered everything off, I realized, this is like, I'm like a newborn right now, What am I really gonna do with myself? What do I want to do? Not what I think I should do, but what do you really want to do? And I thought about getting blacked out probably 2000 when no one was even thinking of tattooing yet, like that, And I'm like, man, I just want black stuff. That's it, a suit. I started moving on to the face a few years ago. I started off with this chin. Actually, that's not true. I brought up this slope I had coming from my lip onto the side of my ear. And that was the first time I leveled up a bit on my face. Following that was the chin piece. And then I went back in and brought it into the lips on myself. I made my mind up that I wanted my eyes done probably like 2015 when it wasn't still so, popular. And it took me 5 years to get it done. Yeah, I had an opportunity to get them done by Luna Cobra, the guy who created the eyeball tattoo. And he ended up coming to New York one day. One of my buddies told me he was in town. I'm like, one of my body mod guys, and I was like, this is it, today's the day, So I reached out and he squeezed me in and we just got it done about 5 years ago. The only concern I remember having is when the needle was in my eye, vision goes. Things get darkening, they close up. And I remember that was scary, But after that, I had no real concerns. I remember one time I woke up, maybe the second night into having them done. The room is black, of course, and I remember opening my eyes and it was pitch black and my heart just jumped out of the socket. And I'm like, oh, this is it, I'm up. And obviously I realized a few minutes that the room was just dark, so. Well, as of now, I think I'm 50% done. Yeah, I have a few body modifications. That's gonna continue. Nothing too drastic, but who's to say what drastic is? I have 2 cropped ears. I have a cautery branding on the side of my face. I've already started blacking my gums out. Skin peel on the chest, little things here and there. Our eyes, that's a modification. And I'm just gonna continue with that as well as the tattooing. I feel like I'm becoming myself more and more every time I do something. All these decisions are, carefully thought out and thought out in advance, and like this, it's exactly what I want to do. So it just helped me be who I want to be.
Were there any doubts as you started on the blackwork journey?
None. I was 1,000% sure. This was it. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm gonna die.